Order. Okay, Mr. Brock, am I live?
You're not logged in on this.
Yeah. I'm not logged in on that computer.
Yeah.
Bummer. Well, I don't know how. I don't know. Boot it and see if it comes up and logs in.
We can hear you online though.
Okay, I'm told you can hear me.
Yeah, email or
What is that?
Zoom.
Okay, so. Well, why can't you? I don't understand why we can't log in. Go ahead and close that.
I can close it.
Yeah. And now try Zoom again. And do you need the meeting room? Do you need the phone number thing that you use?
I do.
Oh, you do need it?
I found it.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, try again.
Okay, testing. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I got you guys online. I got one person online here with a headset that he's that we usually use. But since you can hear me online, and I am recording. Okay. On creating views, you're going to have an if object ID, and then the view name. Just like a table, drop, view name. Now, there are other ways to do this, and I'm seeing people have found them. The reason I use this particular one is because it's covered in the book. Let's see, drop view name if exists, I believe, is one of them. And there's several ways you can do it, and you can Google that and find and find the various ways of writing that. So we drop the view. Then you must have a go, and then create view. I'm letting down these screens because people have been complaining about reflection on the board. Create view name as, and then there's your code, and then you get to the end of it, and then another go. If
Set the next create view, by the way.
you just go to the next create view, and you say go. So before you do create view, if you're doing create view, you just put one go in between all of them. So the last thing, in other words, the last thing before I come to create view has to be go. As soon as I finish doing the view, the next statement has to be a go. Okay, so I can create several views here, so and I could just go right into the next one. Create view as, needless to say, we do have to have we're still not getting the databases right. AP_DB is our accounts payable database. That's our production database. And then we had one other one that was Scratch DB. So if I execute this, it should just execute commands completed successfully. I shouldn't get an error that view name already exists. If I execute him again, he'll execute again because I've dropped the view. Now, like I say, you can say drop view name if exists. I believe this works. Drop view name. And okay. A what now?
Gun tree.
No, that should have worked if it was going to work. I guess that's not working. If we Google that, you might be able to find the syntax of it. There is a syntax that goes with that, and it works with tables, other stuff. So it's a little bit shorter typing. And one of the things that SQL does, it gets long and tedious with its typing. So anything that shortens the typing is a good idea. But I want your code at this point to start running as a unit. In other words, as a script, so you can run it. Now, I don't always get that right at first. If sometimes I have to tweak it, but I want you guys to start making the code run. So when the drop views, you got to put it together and make it run. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna get calmed down here. And what I wanted to do today was to cover wrap up some of the last minute little stuff that we didn't do. And to that end, I wanted to cover the IIF. IIF is not SQL. This is not SQL. IIF though is an SQL function, or it's a function in the SQL of most platforms now. So it has started to migrate out into the world of SQL. So line 3 up here, select IIF, if in other words, if, and this is just like it's used in Excel. Excel has an if function. Sometimes this is called the functional if. So in Excel, you would write, in some cell, you would put equals if some cell number, I don't know what, G3 is greater than 0, comma, so that's the if G3 is greater than 0, then the value of this cell is 45. Else, the value of this cell is P7 minus 1. I'm making this up as I go. So that could be, that's a function that is in a cell in an Excel spreadsheet. Am I speaking your language? You're going to go take Excel. Well, we will have the, maybe my fall class will make called descriptive analytics, which will essentially be scientifically using a spreadsheet to do statistics and stuff. But you see this stuff on other programming languages have this in it. Anybody think of one that does? You've talked about it. What is it? Java? You're a Java. You do Java, right? Oh, okay. I think Python does it. In C, you have, X is greater than 0. For example, that's the if, and then there's a question mark. Is that true or false? And then what do we put if it's true? The value of that function is that if it's true, and if it's false, it's -13, I guess. So that is a function that says if X is greater than 0, then the value of this function, this statement, is 45. Else the value of this statement is -13. Well, that's what this does, essentially. It evaluates the first one. If the first piece is true, right, is true, then it prints null, none, N-O-N-E. So if vendor address 2 is null, put the string, on the select line, we put the string N-O-N-E. Else, we put the string vendor address 2. And we can see it run. Because I just don't like seeing null, 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 null. I want to put something else. I could also put just an empty string there and just not put anything.
The advantage of doing this is supposed to just update where
addresses?
Oh, probably. Well, it's different. It lets you do some things that you can't do otherwise using IIF. It's really an if, so it's an if function. And I've seen people using it. It's a nice one. I like this particular one because it's in step with the same kind of programming in Excel. You find it in Java, you find it in C, that you can do an if this way. It's different from an if some condition is true, then do this, that, and the other end. Else do this one and this one and this one and this one and then the other. This one is just a function. So this one says if it's true, the value of this function is 7. Else the value of this function is hi-ho berry berry, close quote. Okay. Now, and that makes it handy. Somebody is speaking.
Yes, sir. I have a quick question. So if you were to alias this, could you use this in your, like in your where clause, if you're pulling this data from a table?
Where, and then have an if, an IIF. You know, I would just have to set that up and try it. I don't know exactly what it would look like. It is a value that you select. So the function is a value. So it's like the value of the function is the value of this function. If the vendor address is null, if that's true, the value of this function is the string NONE. So you could use it any place you would use a string. But where, you could probably have it in the where clause, I would bet. Where, and then have an IIF equals none. I'll bet you could have it. I would just have to work on that and try it. Nobody's ever asked me that before. But I could see a use for it, maybe.
I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, we have a solution in search of a problem. I do that a lot. I chase stuff like that a lot. Yes, in fact, you can nest them. So you can do quite a bit with this. Yes, it really is like Excel. It really is a functional if. It's what we call a ternary function. It's a function that takes 3 arguments. The first argument is the condition. The second argument is the consequent value, and the third argument is the alternative value. It's really used a lot in computer programming. And so it's really handy to have, and this is the one thing that I'm going to cover today that I think is really nice to have. It's covered in the textbook. It's well documented in other things. Next one I don't care much for, and that is the case. It is called a case statement many times. It's not really a statement. It's an expression. It's a statement if you're in C, or no, it's called a switch in C. Case in other programming languages such as Pascal. So case, it usually has the word case. When the invoice is less than 100, then the value of this expression. Now notice it's an expression here. See, this one's different. This one's a comma. Then we have the case, and then we give it a name. I should have given this a name, really, because he ended up with no column name. Go ahead, please. Okay.
The only thing that it looks weird over there, because I know
it looks weird.
Is that you have invoiced the task individually, and after that you ask the question inside.
Okay, let me see if I've got it right. What do I ask the question?
The invoice total.
The invoice total. Yes. So I have to select invoice total in this one, and then I come down here, and using invoice total is part of this expression. So I have to select it. If I don't select it here, in this, and I'm pointing to something on the board up here. If I don't, let me point with the mouse instead so everybody can see it. If I don't select it, then I will get an error down here. However, this one, notice I never select vendor address. He's just used in it. I think that's a whole lot nicer of it. So I personally think IIF is a whole lot more useful than the case. The case is supposed to short circuit. When it hits something that is true, it is supposed to exit. It doesn't, that's not, and you can't take that to the bank, but I can give you a condition where it won't. But for right now, I'm just going to say that it quits, unlike the switch statement and some of them that just keep right on going unless you specifically exit. C, for example. So this should only do one of them and then get out. So when if it's less than 100, then small, less than 750, then medium. And I guess it's okay for doing ladder logic. Personally, I am not a big fan of using case logic. I will generally write it with if then else statements because I have more control over it. I have used case, but I'm not a big fan of it. Mm-hmm. Case has some good uses, parsing a menu, asking the user to, you know, what do you want? Select 1 for normal, 2 for panic, and 3 for auto destruct. And that using a case statement to get it. Which team are you on? Robins, Blue Jays? Usually, though, I can do a little bit better with if then else because sometimes I know some of them are used more than others. And then in the case, I would put the if then else to catch the ones quickly. What if I didn't want to display the invoice total? And here we have here we have a nested one. Notice that this one, okay, so if we select this guy, notice we're seeing monster invoice, small, medium, right? But I see the invoice total. If I take the invoice total out of it and try to run it without that, then I get an error because I can't, okay. Well, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting it to require invoice total. Okay, well, my bad. I still don't like case logic a whole lot. I will typically use IIF. And anything that I can do in case logic, I can do with IIF. IIF has the problem that it gets a little weird in formatting it and where the commas go and where do the closing parentheses go. And notice that I have a bunch of, I guess you can't see it there, but I have bunch of closing parentheses all stacked up there. The good part of it is I don't have to learn something different. Everything can be, I always work in IIF or if logic instead of case logic questions. If you want to run in case, that's fine. I'm not giving an assignment on this, but people have been using it.
What I see is that these parentheses open and close in the back.
Parentheses what?
Okay, never mind.
Well, the parentheses are closing on line 27, and they're all closing there, and that is a problem. It's a problem figuring out how to format these. I don't know. The best I can tell you is just to do something that looks good to you, feels good to you. It's good. If you can figure it out, if you can read it. Like I say, I think IIF is a better tool than the case logic, and it's more versatile. It's going to get me by. Okay, I'm going to wrap that one up. If there are no questions or anything else. Okay, we'll save him. All right, where was I? I'm going to talk about grouping sets. Now, I meant to get this together and give it to you. This comes from a, golly, I'll put the file out there that creates this database. They're creating this author creates a table. And I say, I don't want to create a table, I want to create a view. And I was going to spend a little more time on this, but let me see what, I'm going to go in there and select everything. First thing I'm going to do, first thing I'm going to do is I have to open that file. Well, crap. Okay, I didn't get something copied that I needed to get copied. Bear with me again. Documents. I'm going to hand out this, the file that I'm going to open now, I will hand out to you as a zip file and post it under an announcement. Let's see. SQL Server sample database. Okay, here is the URL to this one. I modified this a little bit, and so this is SQL, and it's going to load the sample database, and it's a very nice little tutorial, and I think I might start using it online. We might even just move away from a textbook altogether and use online, except people expect textbooks. But here's the URL to a very nice little tutorial, very, very short and sweet. And this one basically creates a bunch of tables. So I'm going to execute and create the tables. And so this is kind of like creating the AP database, except I created all my tables over in Scratch. So here I'm dropping stuff. One thing I did want to talk about a little bit here that we haven't talked about is a schema. A schema is kind of like a database, except within a database, it allows you to separate tables. So if I want to have two tables of the same name in my database, I can do that. I just create a different schema, S-C-H-E-M-A. I believe that is a plural noun, like data. But a schema allows you to have something like this particular one is production. So under the production schema, I can have a table named parts. Under the sales schema, I can have another table named parts, and they'll be kept separate from each other. So it's a different namespace. They're not quite the same as a database. So once the database is there, now I can have multiple schema in there, and it allows me to subdivide the database. In order to drop a schema, it has to be empty. So I have to drop all the tables first. So notice that here is a table that is in the production schema. Here is a table that is in the sales schema. Questions? And then when you want for some, we haven't talked about it a whole lot in here. It's not real important if you just have one database and one thing going on in it, like for example, the AP database, accounts payable. Well, what if I had some other database, some other besides accounts payable? What if I had HR? They're part of the same company. It's the same database, it's on the same equipment, but I want to keep the two separate because the accounts payable database might have something called customers. And maybe in the HR database, I could have a table called customers, but they're two different, completely different tables with different structures. And I could do that if I broke it into two schemata. Okay. There are some other things it gives us, but that's the big one. Think of it as two folders inside of a database. So if the database is like a big disk drive, think of the schema as folders, somewhat. It's what they're used for. And so I create the schema again, and the tables, and I would give you this file. I've got another one in here, file open, that I will give you. And that's the one that loads the data, inserts a bunch of data, execute. It takes this one a little while because, okay, but he finally executed. So now I've got this guy. So I'm going to create a view. Now the view is based on the view is in the sales schema. Sales summary is its name. Now this guy, our author of this, created a table, and he creates a table. By the way, I can create a table in the same way that you create a view. You don't have the word create view, but it's just select, and then you use the word into the new table name. And what that does, it creates a table, but I would never create a table when I can create a view just as easily. Why? Because a view is going to update as the underlying tables update. So I think views are much better. But he's got a bunch of joins in him and all that jazz. So when I create the view, so I'm going to go ahead and create the view now. Notice I have go on both sides of it, execute, and he created successfully. And basically all I did was format it and change it a little bit. Let's take a look at what's in it. Execute. Now it's pretty straightforward. Okay, does it make sense? What do I have? I have bicycle. This is bicycles, by the way. Those are bicycles. The brands. Over here I have Electra, Haro, Heller, Pure Something, Strider, Sun. Here I have the category of children's bicycles, comfort bicycles, cruisers, electric bikes, mountain bikes, and various categories. And then I have year model 2016, 17, 18. I think that's it. I think they just run 16, 17, 18. And then the sales for that. So this says that in 2016, I sold, what is that, $109,819 worth I guess they're dollars, worth of Electra bicycles, children's bicycles. And 2017, 2018. So think of the questions I could ask here. How could I group these data? Well, I could clearly group by year. I could see my, so just keep that in mind, what's in there. I could group by year, I could group by brand, I could group by category, right? I couldn't group by year, brand, category. What category? I want to see all the children's bicycles put together. How many children's bicycles did I sell? How many electric bikes did I sell? What were the total sales for electric bikes? So I could answer all those questions. And it's not a big deal to answer them. Okay. For example, I can see them grouped by, no, this is just everything. Select everything. Order by that. Okay, I'm not going to bother with that one. Let's look at number one. Select brand, category, and sum the sales across all years. So what am I grouping by? Brand and category. I have to group by brand and category. Why? New rule. I have an aggregate function. Anything that's not in the aggregate function has to be grouped. So what am I going to see when I execute this? The usual stuff, the brands, and the categories. So Electra children's bicycles, I sold $207,606 worth of them across all 3 of my years. And so on. I'm not going to beat this dead horse. This is chapter 6, I think? I don't know, a long time ago. Okay, let me close this then, and let's look at another one. Here's one. I want to see the sales amount by brand. Now, what have I done? I've taken the category out, and I want to see the sales amount by brand, grouped by brand. Well, I'm summing the sales, grouping by brand. The other's gone. And I can see that. And now I can see what? Electra, I had 1,205,300. I guess I've got a pretty big bicycle shop here. On all categories, all years. Total them up, and I have that. Okay, there's method to this madness. Likewise, I can see by category. Let's look at it by category. Execute, and I see children's bicycles. All total, I sold that many, 292,000 and some odd $189. Maybe it's yen. I don't know. And so on. And then finally, how much money did I make? That much. Total sales for the store or the manufacturer or whatever. I guess I'm a distributor. I want this put into, you asked me about a report. I want a report. I want a report that shows all of these data. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do it using SQL. Do not have to have this. What I'm going to talk about today, I do not have to have. I can do this with just straight SQL using a union. Now, the first thing you probably noticed was that as I moved down in that from the first one to the fourth one, I had fewer and fewer fields returned. So somebody's beeping me. So there's 4 categories. There's 4 groups. The first one grouped by brand category. Sales was in all of them. Brand category. I could have added the years in there, but I didn't. Just brand and category. Number 2 grouped by brand. Number 3 grouped by category. And number 4 just gave me the big number all total. I want that all in one SQL query, please. One SQL query so I can see the output and so I can pass it up to my web page who's going to format it very beautifully into a report for my big shots. I don't care that it looks pretty. I'm not a guy that makes things pretty. I'm a guy that gives you the information. So I want to hand this to you in a nice, neat little package. Okay. First thing, okay, I'm going to use the union. Select. That's just the first SQL query. Are you with me?
Yeah.
First SQL query. If I ran that by itself, I'm going to see that first SQL query. Union. The second SQL query is brand and sum. Notice, but he has to have the same number of fields returned. So what I'm going to do is instead of, I can't give you 2 fields and union it with 3, I have to have 3 and 3. So I have to put a null in its place as a placeholder in order to put it together. Okay. Number 3. Well, number 3 was just category. So that means that the other one has to be null. So 3 is category and sum it. And number 4, finally, null, null, sum sales. Order by. This by the way goes to the whole union. Everything is ordered. Now let's look at what happens here. When I run this thing, execute. Now, I probably would flip it the other way around, but it's much easier to do, and it's simpler this way. And I'll let my web people flip it around. They got data flippers over there that'll handle that just fine. So notice that the first one, notice the first row. First row, null, null, right? And wherever there's a null, that's telling me that that's grouped by that. So null, null means it's grouped by. It's grouped by. It's just a big aggregate there, and that's the first one. Now, and ordinarily, I would probably put that one down at the end. Let's see, somebody wants to communicate with me. Yeah, I hate it when people in my church are bad about sending texts to everybody. I know, and then everybody else starts talking in text, and it's sent to everybody. And the way my text works, if I don't go look at it, it keeps beeping. So whatever, you don't need to hear that. So null, I'm grouping by brand and category sales. That's the only one. I only got 1 row of that. It's the very top one. I would probably prefer it to be the bottom one, so I'm just going to take it and flip it over. I can do that, but that's just the way it works out the best, because null gets remember, sorted first. So if I'm sorting by brand and category, that one's going to come to the top. Now I'm sorting by brand. The brand is my grouping. Children's bicycles, this may have comfort bicycle, cruisers, cycle, blah, 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 blah. Okay? Now, so everything's grouping on this one. Now I'm grouping on the category. That says that the null, that the category, the brand Electra, grouping the category. So $1,205,321. And inside of that, I've got children's comfort, cruisers, and electric. If I added up then 2, 3, 4, I should get that number. So this is, I'm giving you a report here. Okay. And Haro, the same thing. There's my, again, I would prefer it to be, I'd prefer the first shall be last, the last is first, and all that jazz. I can see it real easily here under this on line 17 and 18. I only have one bicycle, one mountain bike under Heller. So Heller has $171,459 sold. And notice that that's the same number right under it because there's only one field in the group. Excuse me. And some of the others are the same. Then we get down to Trek and have a bunch of them.
Whoever is going to make the report have absolutely all the information. They don't need to do anything.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
only to put it
Mhm.
raw.
And so as when I pass this up the food chain, this query, it's everything, and it's based on a view. So as the data change, the report stays up to date. That's why I would never, I always want my reports based on views. If you go to this website, and I suggest you do, it's got some very good tutorials in it. You'll notice that they're creating a table. So their report is based on a table, and I said, I don't want to base it on a table. I want it on a view. Okay, questions? Now, what's that?
Can I see the code real quick again?
This one?
I'll pass. I'll discuss later.
See the query?
Yeah.
If you wish.
Sure.
The query is actually 4 queries.
Okay.
There they are, and they're all unioned together.
Okay.
So the first one is just selects everything, and then put the null in there. So this one is going to get pushed up before the rest of them because the null comes first. So the null, I know that the null will percolate to the top. So here I have null, null. So so the 4th query is going to be the first one, and then he's going to expand down. You can't just simply say order by descending. That just doesn't work. So it's a little trickier. If I just put it this way, if it's all the way upside down, it's easier than if it's a more complicated query.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to move to the next one. Roll up. I'm going to do roll up first. That was a long, tedious query. Roll up does exactly the same thing. Roll up does exactly the same thing as I just did with those unions. Roll up is what we call, in the programming world, we have a name for it. Well, we have lots of names for it, but the name that we use for this, when we have something like this, T-A-C-T-I-C, syntactic sugar. I don't need it. I don't have to have this. I can do it just fine, and most of the time, me being the control freak that I am, you know about control freaks, don't you? Mm-hmm. Knock, knock. You say, who's there? I say, control freak. Now you say, control freak who?
Control freak who?
Now you say, ah ha ha, I get it.
Oh.
Okay, so I'm a control freak for people, I guess, but I'm really found that I can't control people, but I can control my computer. And what I am probably one that would stick with the unions to do it. But look, it gets a lot shorter. Select, brand, category, sum. Just select from the table. Notice I put the schema in the table name. So I don't, I do have to do that. By the way, there's a default schema. This default schema is DBO, in case you've noticed that popping around. Group by, roll up, brand, category. Now, isn't this a whole lot easier to type than the other method? The reason I like the other method is because I understand better what's going on. Well, they tell me, they claim that the roll up is actually faster than it is breaking it out by into the unions. That's what they claim. Now, I would have to set up and test it. I don't know that I believe them, but I do know that it is shorter. And if I were to execute this, I believe it will execute. Nope. I have to use. Now, if I were to execute, notice that I got exactly the same thing. Exactly, nulls in the same places, exactly the same rows, exactly the same data, with a lot less typing. So as near as I can tell, that's probably the best use for it, is to reduce the typing. That is roll up. Roll up, and this is, by the way, this what I showed you on the other one is called grouping sets. So that's where you put the nulls in there, because you have to have four, excuse me, three. I have to have four fields in each one, counting the sum. Is it four? No, it's three. So I have to have three fields in each of them, so I just have to put a null in there. But I get exactly the same thing. Okay. Next one is cube. Cube is a little bit different. I don't find cube to be as useful as roll up. And we skipped over this because this is not in SQL. What cube will do is it shows you much the same type of stuff. Let's see, this one has 40 rows, whereas my let me check my roll up. I think that I forget how many rows the roll up had. Okay, roll up had 74 rows. The cube is going to have fewer rows. So brand and category, and let's see if we can spot how it's different. Yeah. So children's bicycles, okay, it's sorted differently. So all the nulls are here. So the children's bicycles are put at the beginning. Then Electra, and these guys come in order. It's a different format of the report. Now, the thing of it is that with Cube, Cube tends to take the two that you have and generate every possible combination of them. So, so we have null children's bicycles, Electra null, Haro null, and we have fewer at first, but as we add, with Cube it's very easy, because as we add things like model year, I'm going to start getting big very, very quickly. And here suddenly I have 120 rows. So I'm going to start hitting this information overload thing here very quickly, and where I get such a big monstrosity of data, of a cube of data, that I have difficulty interpreting it. And so will your web people if you pass this up to them and they don't really know what it is. They can drop it into a spreadsheet, and that's probably the best way to process it or display it. That's probably what I would do with it. So when I'm coming from something where I'm taking roll-up and cube data, I will probably tend to put it into a spreadsheet so I can format it and put it out in a nice formatted form. SQL is just terrible for formatting. It doesn't format. You need another tool to format. But the nice thing about it is I can just catch it here and copy and paste it right into a spreadsheet. Questions? Okay. And did I have one more? I believe that's about where we're at on that. Now, what I've covered today, IIF will probably be formally SQL in a few years, a couple of years. I expect to see IIF. I know Oracle implements IIF. I know Oracle in this case and group and roll-up and cube also. I don't know about cube. Oracle has a stronger web interface built into the database platform. So when you buy the Oracle platform, you're really buying not just the database, but you're getting the web server and everything else with it. And so as you build your web forms, you're actually building them in Oracle, and you're programming them in this PLSQL language. Whereas if you're with SQL Server, you have a fairly nice database. I mean, Oracle people always knock SQL Server. Oh, that inferior database, they say. Well, really it isn't. Oracle snobs. The difference is that I have to go get another product to build my web forms. And under Oracle, I can build them all in my Oracle package. So I don't have as much issue with interface between the two products. I have to go over to Visual Studio and build a web page and then connect to the database. In Oracle, I just pop open a form and the database is already connected. So it's a whole lot easier. And let's see. Anyway, I'm not going to put this stuff that I'm talking about today is not going to go on the final. I'm not going to go on the test. I'm not going to give you an assignment on cube and rollup. Although it does talk about cube and rollup, you're free to do the last one that we did that had a question on there. I left that one off. I said, well, do I really want to fool with it? Okay. I've got people that are still turning in stuff from February. Well, that ain't going to happen again. So I'm going to wrap up there, and I'm going to call it a morning, I guess. I hope I get home with less trouble than it took me to get here. I'm not going to leave for quite a while yet because I have this. I'm going to put out, let me zip up all of these files that I was using today, quite a few SQL files, and let you take a look at them. The URLs are in them. I suggest you go look at those tutorials. It's kind of like a textbook, and the reason I like it because everything is nicely cataloged. So if I want to find out the exact examples of IIF, I go right there and I see a nice example of how to use it. This is good and it's bad. It's good in that if you already know how to program well, it gives you what you need to write the code. On the other hand, it doesn't really teach you how to program. It's kind of like trying to learn football by watching a football game. If you don't know anything about football, you don't really pick up the rules very easily. I was trying to do that with hockey. I was trying to find, well, what are the rules of this silly game? It looked interesting. It was nice and fast, but I couldn't figure out, they're running around banging into each other. And sometimes when they bang into the guy, it's foul, and sometimes it isn't. And I guess if you whack them with the stick, it's a foul. I don't know. Same thing with programming. If I want to just see an example, I can learn a lot from that, but I have to know how to program already. But I do think that website that I'm referencing in here, wherever it was, go away. This one, create objects. So this link right here takes you to the load sample database, but it's SQL Server tutorial.net. And so if you go there, it's got quite a wide selection of very brief, short tutorials. I may incorporate some of those in my stuff. The other thing that we're talking about doing is possibly going to an Oracle platform. I don't know whether it would be for this class. Maybe we would teach like one semester in SQL Server and one semester in Oracle. There's really no reason to take it again in Oracle. SQL is just SQL. Okay. All right, so I'm going to wrap up there. Next week, if you are happy with your grade, and I should have everything, I pretty well got everything caught up. Now, if you've got a lot of stuff pending, if there's a lot of really old stuff that's just gotten turned in, and I'm going through it, and I got 50 things to grade, and most of them are from February and March. You have to take the final to know. But so the final will be in this room at, well, I'm going to offer it online. Okay. You will be able to take it online. I will post an announcement. So the final will be online, and you're not going to have a whole long time. You're not going to have the luxury of time on this. You're going to have to watch out for when it will be. It will be open. The final will be open at 10 o'clock until 2 o'clock on Friday. I will guarantee that it will be open during class time. I will be online. I will have Zoom up. Okay. And I'll take questions. It will probably be open at 8 o'clock, and it will probably remain open until 5 o'clock, I believe. I will not be online the whole time. When the test 4:10. At 10 o'clock, I will come on. At 2 o'clock, I will probably hang up. We can open a private chat if you have questions about grade or anything like that. We can take it to private. I guess I can do that with Zoom. Can I go to private on Zoom?
I don't know.
I guess Canvas. Yeah, Canvas has a chat feature, don't they? Yeah. Well, anyway, we can always switch over to email and discuss it where we're not talking to the whole world. So I will be here. If you are happy with your grade, then Que vaya con Dios.
How that is gonna work? If you are happy with your grade, are you gonna do the subtraction like for the final, or you are gonna leave it like that and not touch it?
The subtraction, what do you mean?
For example, if I take the final and I get 75, you are gonna add the 75 to the amount that I already have. If I don't take the final, are you gonna do?
Okay, yes. I'm going to work it such that the final being optional, meaning that it is just the average. The idea of having, there's about 1,000 points available or something, but I kind of tend to make changes. It stays about there, but I have to look at, what did I offer? And that's not always set in stone. I have never been able to say, this is the way it's going to be, and then it always will be that way. It just never works.
For example, let's go and say that I have 88.
Okay.
And I don't want to take the
She has 88 and she doesn't want to take the final. And if I had an 88, I would take the final because you'll probably raise your grade.
No, but this is in case.
Okay.
For example, if I want to stay with that, how
Okay.
that is gonna be at the end.
Then that would be your grade.
Okay, cool. That was what I wanted.
Yes. So what you have before, if you choose not to take the final, you will probably, if you choose to take the final, you will probably raise your grade. If you missed a test, then you can take the final, and I really don't like failing people. No, I will bend over backwards to try to pass you. So if you missed a test, by all means take the final. And I have a lot of power over it. So if you miss the test, take the final. If you are if you're low on a test, take the final. You will probably raise your grade. There won't be a whole lot of new stuff. There will not be any of that programming stuff. I'm not going to ask you about a procedure. We won't do a trigger. Okay. I won't do IIS or roll up, anything like that. If you want to do the roll up question on what module is that, I think it's 12, 11 or 12. You may. So now I would be able to assign it, but I'm not going to. Go ahead.
Okay, and if you want to take the test, I don't want you to evaluate this to correct that because you can get me down.
Then don't turn it in.
No, correct, but are you gonna post the results probably one day for me to check it out?
The answers? I can, but by the time I get there, I don't think you can access the access it. I guess I could post it in my online portfolio, which is a public facing Canvas page. I don't know, Juana. I haven't thought that far in advance yet. I'm just trying to get through today.
Hey, Dr. Smith.
Monday. Go ahead.
Oh, so just a real quick clarification. Everything as far as assignments are due today. And then the lectures, I still need to go back and rewatch indexing. Are those going to disappear after today, or will they be up until next week?
Nothing disappears after today, and I think they will be up until the official end of the semester, and that's probably when grades are due, which is probably the Tuesday after the finals.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's when it's gonna, at some point it turns into a pumpkin. Now, personally, I would like to see, I wish Canvas would allow me to leave everything active and up and allow me to turn it off. But they haven't done that yet. So whether it's turned on or off is outside of my control.
Okay. And then the other question I have was, and next steps for classes. I know you called out descriptive analytics in the fall. Are there any other classes, maybe this summer or in the fall, that we could kind of continue this SQL knowledge journey?
I'm not knocking descriptive analytics. That class has a history of not making. I'm not saying don't sign up for it, because if nobody signs up for it, then it won't make for sure. I have never taught it, but it's essentially statistics in Excel. It's good. I think it'd be a good class. I have to kind of feel my way through it at first, but I'm not sure it's going to make. And for those of you who are looking for something for the summer, you mean?
Yes, sir.
If you are interested in a good area, you might download Oracle Express Edition. The Express Edition is, by the way, you register with Oracle, and then you'll have to do a little bit of research there to find out what you need to download. If you register with Oracle, you can download anything Oracle has. So they will allow you, for learning purposes, to download Oracle's whole platform, $250,000 worth of software, and probably 2 or 3 disks worth. It's long, it's big, it's a monster. I suggest you have a disk drive that you can take out and format when you're done. Oracle does not set nicely with other programs. But you can, or you can just download the Express Edition, which is what I do. If you do that, then you can, Oracle has lots of good documentation online. You don't have to go out and buy an Oracle text, although if you wanted to, you can find a lot of them at price books. And just start practicing in Oracle. I'm going to be doing a web page, a canvas in Oracle. And what I might be doing at some point is asking for students to sign up for a class to take Oracle. And in other words, we'd develop the class.
Actually, there is a class in the portfolio. There is a class that is Oracle PLSQL.
PLSQL, yes. Yeah, that's. I don't know what we're going to do with that one. Like I say, I'm a retired adjunct professor here. That means that I don't go to the faculty meetings and all that, so they don't pay much attention to me. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and dismiss. I'm going to end the recording now. Any questions from online?
No, sir. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
And you do likewise. Am I going to see you guys for the final?
Yes, sir.
Okay.